reason I got into yoga was in the mid-90s, and it was much more of a spiritual activity for me. I wasn't really interested in the physical aspects of yoga at that time. At that time I was about the martial arts, Tai Chi, but I went to the Temple of Kriya Yoga in Chicago, and I just became fascinated with Kriyananda, and eventually developed a guru-disciple relationship with him. And for me, yoga is a way to activate, to find out who I really am. And yoga is a discipline in order to do that, in order to be, what lack of a better word, real. To be myself, or to bring out that aspect of myself which is the divine. In yoga, you see one hand against another, and people say namaste. Well, namaste has many meanings, as every Sanskrit word does. And it means this half of me, all of me salutes the divine in all of you. And for me, that represents, every time I close my class with that, is the divine in me is saluting the divine in all my students. So I became fascinated with the physical aspects of yoga, and did a couple of workshops, and then eventually a retreat in which I decided, spur of the moment, I wanted to take teacher's training. That was back in '97. And I had some wonderful teachers, and Kim Schwartz, William Hunt, who is known here in Oak Park, and they just trained me very well in alignment, in form, but more than that, yoga philosophy. I do not know how one does yoga without understanding the yoga philosophy. And it's much more of, it's more than an exercise. It has a component to do with the breathing. For me, is when you get into a yoga posture, into a yoga pose, and you're in it, if you can't breathe, you need to make some adjustments in order to be able to breathe with the least amount of constriction. And it took William Hunt, it was kind of interesting, it came to the end of my year-long study. It's a 200-hour program, and I didn't want to do the final teaching aspect to it. And William sat me down and basically said, "You'll be fine, just do it." So I did it, and I found out, first time I ever taught, that I really enjoyed it, which was sort of scary. And because I had never considered doing that before. I can tell you all the different things that I'm not real articulate. I don't know my right from my left, which my students laugh at me all the time for. And so I gave him all those reasons, and he said, those were all valid reasons. Shouldn't prevent you from teaching, which was something I never considered before. So when I finally did teach, I realized I put that more in perspective and decided, yeah, I kind of like this. I could do this. Let me try it. So the first time I ever studied or taught a class, I had all that written down, all the what's called lesson plan, and then I described to 20 people in front of me what to do. And as I looked out, I couldn't believe that what I said they were doing or not doing, as the case may be. And I had to reread it. No, I read this, I did it. And over time, I was able to articulate what I wanted to do. In other words, what worked, what didn't work. And I kept what worked. And and then this was like in '98 to 2000, there was this huge craze for yoga. And I just kept getting people asking me to teach. And that was kind of nice, because I never asked for it, never looked for it, and people just asked me. And so eventually I went from having no classes in 2 years to about 15. And so I came to really like it. I found that there was a real joy in teaching. There was a real ability for me to communicate how my student can feel comfortable in their body, what they can do differently to access a pose. And back then, there wasn't that many. I think back then the Park District of Oak Park had 4 yoga classes for the whole week. By 2000, we probably had about 20. And it was just really cool to see that, to have the students. And throughout my career, since I've been doing this since '98, I've had a lot of students, 20, 30 people in a class. And over time, the teacher inside of me wanted something different. And over the years, I wanted to do that. I wanted smaller classes. I wanted something sort of out of my home type feeling. And that's how yoga was traditionally taught, out of one's home. The teacher and the student would get together more on a one-to-one basis. So that was the dream. So we wanted a smaller space, so in a way that we could afford not to have as many students. I mean, the overhead in a lot of storefronts is just astronomical. I mean, you got to have a lot of mats on the floor just to pay the rent. So we wanted something a little more affordable for us so that we wouldn't have that financial pressure. And so it took us 4 years and to find this place. It took us 4 years to find this place and then another 4 years to actually get in here. So it was a long time coming. And what makes probably our studio unique is the sense that the experience that my wife Susan and I have and bring into this. My experience as a hatha teacher, Susan's experience as a Kundalini teacher, and also as a hatha teacher. And that we can give one-on-one attention. And there's some classes we have 1 people, which is fine. And I've had students for 7, 8 years said the same thing over and over and over and over again. Didn't get it. 1 session with me, they got what I said. They finally understood it. And almost everyone, the person said, "What took me so long?" And I said, "Well, everyone in their own time will learn." And one of the joys of teaching is when their students, my students, begin to, they discover something new. And that sense of discovery, for instance, a lot of people are really unnerved by balancing poses. And if it's explained right and they listen to me and they breathe more from the navel than up here or up here, balancing becomes easier. And there's something about balancing poses that people just, when they do it, get really excited about it. Like, yeah, I did it, yes. And so the joy that I get with teaching is probably one of the most profound experiences of my life. And that's why I like doing it. And that's why I like doing it as much as I do it. Because it's just, people feel better when they do it. We also teach seniors. We go to various places for that. We're on the 2nd floor, so it's hard for a lot of seniors to come up. And the seniors just eat it up. And one of the reasons they eat it up is because they are able to do things that they thought they lost the ability to do years ago. So it's their habits that have caused them to be rigid, to lose flexibility. When I say habits, primarily breathing habits. Because it's your breathing that is the connection between your mind and your body. Or another way of phrasing that more scientifically, you direct your nervous system through how you breathe. And it's because of your breathing pattern that you initiate your flight response. You initiate your relaxation response. So in working with seniors, or working with anyone actually, seniors lose their balance because of shallow breathing. If they start breathing in lower, bring their center of awareness lower, they're able to balance. And there's nothing quite, seeing, a woman 67 being able to balance who was terrified of doing so. And it's accomplishment, and it's accomplishment of regaining something that they lost a long time ago. And I think also seniors really are hooked up into the medical system in which you are treated like a victim. I recently got heart surgery. I definitely know how that feels. Like, if you believe or that this is it, you tend to act that way. But if you can do little things at a time to go back to where you were, maybe decades ago, that's something really, really good. And it's also kind of funny because I can give homework out at home and younger students will forget about it. The older ones are motivated because they want to be independent as long as possible. And every once in a while I'll tell them, you gotta do your yoga if you want to be independent. And they do it. As an age segment, the older or seniors are far more disciplined than the younger. Far more disciplined. And I can go into with a group of seniors that says, who's done yoga? And they'll all basically raise their hand and do it every day to stay functional. I do that to younger people in my different settings and almost no one will raise their hand. That's the difference, that it's really stark. One of the things that yoga does, when I first started yoga, and even before that when I was personal training, I just thought you go in the gym, for instance in the personal training, lift weights, work out. When I started personal training, I began to realize that in order to motivate my client, 75% of it was mental. I just had to figure out what was the motivation. Did they want a friend, a companion to work out with? Did they want, basically a Nazi to, drill sergeant to direct them? Some do. Some need that. Do they want more information so they can go out on their own and do their own workout? Whatever that motivation was, my job was to do that. When I started doing and teaching yoga, it is again 75% mental. What does your mind do when you can't do a pose? Does it say, I can't do that? Does it say whatever it does? And those are habits, mental habits that will either impede or help you succeed. So when you're on the mat, it isn't just that you're on a mat exercising. What is the mental gyrations that are going on in your head? And that's what yoga is about. It puts you in a stressful situation, and then you or the student needs to observe what is going on in your mind. What is going on in your breathing pattern? Those are all interrelated because as you get that stress, controlled stress, and as you use, you can use that stress either to push it away or to say, okay, what is going on? Can I be more neutral with this? Can I look at this and breathe? Can I move or switch the body slightly and see how that feels? There is, with Ashtanga yoga or Bikram yoga, they have a certain set sequencing that you do every time. One of the advantages of both those systems is you begin to notice that your body is very different every single day. Some days it's really fun. Some days you wonder what the hell are you doing? I just want to leave. And if you stay with it, you begin to see that experience rises kind of has a crescendo and then comes down. But if you stay with the sequencing and then do it another day, it will be a different experience. So the body isn't this solid mass, inflexible or whatever you want to label it. The body is much more of something that is dynamic and that is always changing. We all know this, but we don't have a certain vocabulary for it. And that's what yoga has. It's a vocabulary in Sanskrit of our different experiences. Like one of my favorite sayings in yoga is flexibility has nothing to do with age. I've taught college students, 20s. I never saw more inflexible people in my life. And some of these were gymnasts who should be super flexible. I don't know what they did, but I realized afterwards they were doing more upper body stuff than lower body stuff. But it doesn't matter. Flexibility has everything to do with the breath and everything to do with your ability to stick with and to breathe into it. But our mind's always making judgments. And that our judgments, like, I can't do that. Well, if you say you can't do something, why bother? Because you've already confirmed that you can't do it, so wouldn't it be stupid to do it? And so I've learned to change my vocabulary in order to do something. And there's various degrees of yoga poses. So with me, what I learned from William Hunt was, my God, how many ways you can modify a pose to make it accessible to that person. But that takes some time. That takes some commitment on the student's part. And the biggest thing is that for most of us, we experience life through our left brain. In other words, an easier way of saying that is a student will try to imitate me. And they're completely lost if I don't do it, the pose. Even though I'm talking of what to do. If they listen to me and don't even look at me, that forces them to actually begin to move the muscle parts, muscle segments that I want them to. And if they do that, then they're beginning to switch to their right brain. And they're beginning to get access to their breathing and beginning to see how to be in the moment. And the biggest crime for any of us is never really being in this moment. Never experiencing the here and now, never feeling, or very seldom feeling, the joy of being in this moment. And I think that's where yoga is all tied up. In the Yoga Sutras, Yoga Sutra Chapter 1, 2, Sutra 2, is yoga is the sensations of the viridities of the mind. In other words, it stops the chattering of the mind. Because what we think isn't us. Not at all. And when I first started meditating, I was really terrified of what went through my mind. Until my meditation teacher basically said, that's not you. And there was a sense of freedom as he said that. There was a freedom in that, oh, all this stuff isn't me, it's not a reflection on me. And he said, no. What you are is beyond all that. And that is where the joy is. So when a person comes to my class, it's a vacation from, I want to say thinking, but maybe a better word is chatter. The stuff bouncing around in the head. And that vacation is where you want to feel good, is where you access joy, relaxation. Peace.